Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jagopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhare Jagopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhare Jasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
चरण भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतश्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर गोस्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। गौर प्रेमानंदे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकीम्। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 14th chapter, text number 31. साविदित्वात भार्याया तं निर्बन्धं विकर्मणि नत्वादिष्टाय रहसि तयातोपविवशेहि तयातोपविवेशयि सविदित्वात भार्याया तं निर्बन्धं विकर्मणि नत्वादिष्टाय रहसि तायातोपविवेशयि सा विदित्वा भार्याया तं निर्बन्धं विकर्मणि नत्वादिष्टाय रहसि तायतोपाविवेशयि Word to word meaning saha ye viditva understanding ata thereupon bharyaya of the wife tam that nirbandham obstinacy vikarmani in the forbidden act natva offering obeisances dishtaya unto worshipable fate rahasi in a secluded place taya with her ata thus upavivesha le ye certainly. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. ये 30th 29th वर्ड सब कौन लिया, कब लिया? तो वेंसडे, ये वेंसडे भी नहीं लिया है. Translation. Understanding his wife's purpose, he was obliged to perform the forbidden act, and thus, after offering his obeisances unto worshipable fate, he lay with her in a secluded place. Please repeat the translation. Understanding his wife's purpose, he was obliged to perform the forbidden act, and thus, after offering his obeisances unto worshipable fate, he lay with her in a secluded place. Purport. It appears from the talks of Kashyapa with his wife that he was a worshipper of Lord Shiva. And although he knew that Lord Shiva would not be pleased with him for such a forbidden act, he was obliged to act by his wife's desire. And thus he offered his obeisances unto fate. He knew that the child born of such untimely sexual intercourse would certainly not be a good child, but could not protect himself because he was too obligated to his wife. In a similar case, however, when Thakur Haridasa was tempted by a public prostitute at the dead of night, he avoided the allurement because of his perfection in Krishna consciousness. That is the difference between a Krishna conscious person and others. Kashyapa Muni was greatly learned and enlightened, and he knew all the rules and regulations of systematic life. Yet he failed to protect himself from the attack of sex desire. Thakur Haridasa was not born of a Brahmana family, nor was he himself a Brahmana. Yet he could protect himself from such an attack due to his being Krishna conscious. Thakur Haridasa used to chant the holy name of the Lord 300,000 times daily. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Nitiramine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Saviditvat bharyaya ni natvadishtaya rahasi tayoto tayato paviveshahi tayato paviveshahi. So we can see the nature of sense gratification, how alluring and even a man of intelligence can get carried away when he is when he allows himself to look at sense gratification. Even to look at sense gratification is a very dangerous thing. And of all sense gratification, sex desire is the most powerful attraction. So if we allow even a inch of space for anything that is connected to sensual activity, it will just occupy the entire place. So we must be so alert that we don't provide any space to it. You can see Kashyapa Muni was a learned man. He knows all the various consequences of indulging in such an act. All the consequences. Like sometimes we go in Kali Yuga, people so easily indulge in sex as though it is like going to a shop and buying a chocolate. It is so easily accessible and people feel. So sometimes when we tell people that your indulgence in sex without any regulations the consequences, if we explain to them as per the Vedic scriptures, people are so shocked that why for indulging in a sexual act you will be punished like this. You will be taken to the hellish planets and punished so severely. So when we simply explain some of the severity of punishment for indulging in these kind of activities, people are astonished and shocked. 99% people who are not aware of this, when they hear such kind of things, they have contempt in their mind. And even 1% who understands these things or who has faith that yes, they also feel, is it really true? Now here Kashyapa Muni, he is a person of the Vedic order of life. So being, Kashyapa Muni knows in truth, in Tattva he knows what are the consequences that will happen. And yet a person who knows the consequence, just like for example in a crime, a criminal generally does a crime. Of course, there are hardcore criminals, but many criminals, without knowing the consequences of crime, they commit a crime. Because if they knew what was the consequences of the crime, then generally people are scared to do such an act. But here you can see Kashyapa Muni, he knows that this is a crime. I should not act like this. But yet he is acting like that. So why he is acting like that? Because the force of desire, the force of kama is so overwhelming. It completely controls the living entity's decision making and actions. Even if you want to take a decision, the sexual urge will not allow you to take that decision. Even your intelligence is saying the consequences of that intelligence will fail. You will act very foolishly. Such is the power of sexual desire. That is very clearly manifest in this example of Kashyapa Muni. Okay, Diti was a woman. She was overwhelmed. But her husband, he is not an ordinary person. He should have restrained himself. No, he could not restrain himself at all. That is the power of sexual urge. And these are stories, these are facts that have happened in Satya Yuga. So imagine when the conditions for Vedic life was so favorable. with the overwhelming openness of sexual activities in the current age and time, the Kali Yuga people are anywhere and everywhere they are indulging in such kind of acts. So the challenge to practice regulated sexual life in this age and time is far more challenging. You see, at first, if you see the sequence of activity in this interaction between Kashyapa and Diti, we can see that in the beginning, Diti was attracted towards sexual indulgence. So then she requested her husband. There was a conversation engaged. And that from that conversation, back and forth, some argument happened. The right, wrong, all these kind of conversations happened. There was a discussion, Nyaya, Tarka was going on between Diti and Kashyapa. But what is the outcome of that Tarka? The outcome of the Tarka was indulgence. So, Tarko apratishtita. That is why we say that sometimes there is no use of doing Tarka. It is apratishta. You cannot understand spiritual things by argument and reason. Spiritual things are like that. Krishna consciousness is like that. Restraining our senses, restraining our sexual activity. Sometimes people argue with us. What is wrong? What is wrong in this? Why we should not indulge? After all, we are not disturbing anybody else. It is our pleasure. It is our thing. What is wrong? People ask. So when somebody becomes so stubborn, we should understand the instruction. Tarko apratishtita. You should understand, if I indulge more in this argument, I will also become part of that game. You should tell, very good, Hare Krishna, you deal, you do with that. I am going, tata, bye-bye. You should simply walk away. There is no point in argument. Just like what we can see in Diti and Kashyapa's life. Kashyapa, as soon as Diti started talking about this matter, Kashyapa should have immediately stopped it then and there. Why did he allow this conversation to continue? At that beginning itself, he should have told no. When you know, he knows that this conversation, it will end like this. It's a given fact. Repeatedly, Prabhupada says, man is like butter, women are like fire. If you bring the butter and keep it near the fire, and then you tell what will happen, butter will melt. That is the natural consequences. So, if you want to protect your butter's state, then you cannot say, I will protect the butter state by keeping it near the fire. The nature of butter is to melt in near the fire. Simply take the butter out from that point where the fire is there. That is the only remedy. We cannot say, I will control, I will do. It's not possible. That is not the way in which it is designed. Krishna says that series of verses in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita is so clear. It is so clear. Dhume navrati vane yata darsho malayana cha. Krishna is saying, as soon as you see the smoke, you know that there is fire. Avratam jnanamayetena. It covers that smoke just covers the fire. But you know the smoke is there, that means the fire is there. So when you know that this is there, obviously if I take it there, it's going to burn. I have the potential to, like for example, in the aircraft when we fly, they are checking every time. Sir, I will not on, sir. If you take a small matchbox, if you take a small lighter, they'll tell, nahi, isko nahi leke jana hai, andar nahi jana hai. That security fellow will take and throw it in the dustbin. Sir, I am not going to light it. You don't light it, you don't use it, that doesn't matter. In the flight, you will not go there. That's all, as simple as that. We can never say what is the possibility. So they are so tough because it is life and death. In the air, if something happens, what can you do? If it is on the ground, at least you can try and put a brake. What will you do from the sky? You cannot do anything. So they are so tough. You can be Prime Minister of India, whoever it is. The security is so tight in the aircraft. They will not allow you. Anything which is detrimental to which is considered a risk, will not be allowed. No, you can argue whether it will happen, whether it will not happen. Fine, it doesn't happen. You can give 101 cases of examples. Sir, this person traveled with this one, nothing happened. How many times this is being taken away? Nothing has happened. Nothing will work. Because it is so risky. It is too damn risky. So, Bhagavatam mentioning and giving these examples is to make us, is to give us education, is to educate us. What are the various pitfalls that an aspiring devotee can face or will face during his pursuit of spiritual life? Somebody who is already indulging in sex life, what if the laws of karma will take its own actions on him? Laws of karma will be the teacher. Teacher will always be there. Either prakata or aprakata. Aprakata is the impersonal way of learning. It is ruthless. Aprakata way is very ruthless. No compassion. Because you don't deserve compassion. Can be given to whom? Compassion can be given to a learner. Somebody is willing to learn. A non-devotee is a learner, is a non-learner. He doesn't want to learn. So then what can be done? You don't want to learn, no problem. You will be forced to learn. That is the way of impersonal teaching. Learning through Guru, learning through Acharya, learning through scriptures is compassionate. They are warning you, don't do this. We have told you first only, don't do this. That is compassion. That giving you first warning. Material world, no warning. Kala will come and kill you. Kala will come and give you some disease. Kala will give you different types of Adidevik, Adibhautik, Adhyatmik kleshas will come, and they are also teachers. They are actually teachers. It is also compassion only, but compassion in a more deadlier form. And the reason for that is our own choices that we have made in our life. Material world is a very, 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 very dirty place. And the reason for us to be in this place is our own selves. Nobody else is the reason. So it's such a big example, we should not give even an inch. So when Srila Prabhupada is saying, examples, don't associate with women, our scriptures are pointing out, you should never associate with women in isolated places. Talk to them too intimately, because there are consequences for those actions. Where it can lead to, what consequences those actions can lead to, is all too dangerous. Like you see the kind of consequences that Diti and Kashyapa's actions led to. Birth of Maha demons, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. Both very, very big demons, Rakshasas. They gave trouble to so many people. Unless we come, we recognize that no. So in our preaching life, in our spiritual life, we must be very, very alert, very, very careful what subject matters we give our intelligence to, with whom we engage, in what way we engage. Because the mind is basically like a sponge, just keeps absorbing. So sometimes samskaras are like that, imprints. Just mind keeps taking away those imprints. And then those bijas we are creating, those seeds we are putting in the head. And suddenly those seeds starts fructifying. Immediately we start reacting to those actions. So the only way we can counter, one is by restricting our so-called activities, our intelligence and all those things. Second is, the positive aspect is engaging seriously in devotional service. Like Srila Prabhupada is pointing out in this purport, the way Kashyapa is behaving, the way Kashyapa is talking, looks like he is a devotee of Lord Shiva. What is the point that Prabhupada is saying by making this point here? What is the message that Srila Prabhupada is wanting to communicate? By becoming a devotee of Lord Shiva, you cannot control your urges. That's the first thing. And Prabhupada is giving the example of Thakur Haridas in the purport. Now, I make a statement like this, somebody who is a Shiva Bhakta can feel offended, my God. But what can be done? Shastra is like that. You like it or you like, it is not my personal likes or dislike. Oh, I like Shiva, I don't like Shiva, so he is telling like that. No. Shastrena Chakshu. Everything should be seen in the eyes of scriptures. From the eyes of scriptures. So clear that until and unless one surrenders completely to Krishna, Ananyas chintayanto mam yajana. Krishna says, Ananyas na anyaha. Without any deviation, without thinking anybody, one who thinks of me. Ye jana sukrito Arjuna. Somebody who's really sukriti, somebody who's really, really, who has done a lot of pious activities. Only that person can think of me Ananyas. Srila Prabhupada in this purport is pointing out that how, you see, because Haridas Thakur took shelter of the holy name, completely chanting 3 lakh names, he was not attracted by the prostitute. In the middle of the night, the prostitute comes, sits along with Haridas Thakur, and Haridas Thakur is not attracted at all. Whereas a simple conversation between Diti and Kashyapa has led to sexual intelligence, and that too Kashyapa is not a very foolish person. And Prabhupada is again making the point also that how Haridas Thakur is not even a Brahmana, belongs to a lower order, whereas Kashyapa is a great Brahmana, very exalted. He is not a person of this thing. Sometimes in the material world, you see, caste Brahmanas, they claim superiority and all those things. Recently, I went to meet one person. I met one person. So, he is he comes here sometimes, and he belongs to a Brahmin family. So he made a comment to me. He's not very serious in Krishna consciousness. He just comes and goes. Sometimes some donation, some small thing he will do. But many times, he's been many years. For many years he is coming. So many times we have tried to make him serious in Krishna consciousness. But he never took up Krishna consciousness seriously. Respect is there, nice thing we are doing, all that is there. But beyond a certain point, he is not becoming serious in Krishna consciousness. We can see. Serious in Krishna consciousness means what? Serious in Krishna consciousness means surrender and vairagya. 2 aspects. One must develop surrender to Krishna, and one must also develop vairagya from material activities. Both should be there. We can clearly make out who is what is his level, according to their surrender and their sense of vairagya. So, based on that, he was not very thing. So then, he told me that how Prabhu, one of our devotees did one yajna in his house, it seems. So he told me how nicely that yajna was done. And then he told me that devotee who did the yajna in their house, he more or less, because anybody who's trained in our temple, what is there in doing yajna, big thing, little experience you require. So he told me that devotee who did the yajna, Prabhu, he could do that yajna because he is a Brahmana by birth only. Otherwise, normal ISKCON devotee cannot do this. So you see the calculation there. How material calculation is everything based on the birth, and he is not even able to, he is telling, he himself is not he being a Brahmana, even basic. I asked him, are you chanting? No. Then he told Prabhu, some years back, I used to do Ekadashi, now I cannot do Ekadashi also. So you see, in their personal practices of spiritual life, they are not even been able to, and they are only seeing recognition as on completely material basis. Whereas Srila Prabhupada is pointing out giving exactly the comparison between Haridas Thakur and Kashyapa Muni, and saying how Haridas Thakur was not affected because he was so serious in his Krishna conscious life. Of course, just by Naam ka vasta, if you are putting a Vaishnava tilak and a Kanti mala, then you are a Kali Chela. That also is mentioned. Until and unless you are seriously practicing Krishna consciousness, you cannot control your urges. You cannot control your urges. You have to be serious in Krishna consciousness. Then only you can overcome all these kind of things. Otherwise, you will succumb to the various karshanas, attraction. Material world will attract you like anything. Like I told you before, that we must maintain proper control over our urges. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult. We must restrict our engagement. Some quotes are there. Srila Prabhupada says, the so-called national leader or humanist does not serve everyone. He serves his senses only. That is a fact. But the conditioned soul cannot understand this because he is bewildered by the spell of material nature. It is therefore recommended in this verse that one engage very seriously in the devotional service of the Lord. This means that one should not think that he is the proprietor, benefactor, friend or enjoyer. See, Prabhupada is making the point here that to overcome the urges of the senses, what is the quality we must develop? He is saying that one should not think that he is the proprietor, benefactor, friend or enjoyer. And this verse in the 3rd canto only, in the 27th chapter, now we are reading the 14th chapter. In the 27th chapter, text number 21, the text goes, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Animitta Nimittena Swadharmena Amalatmana Tivraya Mai Bhaktya Cha Shruta Sambrataya Charam Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Ejeta Purusham Param. Same verse, similar kind of a verse. Animitta Nimittena Swadharmena Amalatmana Tivraya Mai Bhaktya Cha Shruta Sambrataya Charam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one can get liberation by seriously discharging devotional service unto me and thereby hearing for a long time about me or from me. By thus executing one's prescribed duties, there will be no reaction and one will be freed from the contamination of matter. See, here it is saying continuously by engaging in hearing about me for a long time. Or by thus executing one's prescribed duties, there will be no reaction and one will be freed from the contamination of matter. Contamination of matter. The action of Kashyapa is a clear example of the contamination of matter. So Prabhupada in this purport says that Sridhar Swami comments in this connection that by association with material nature alone, one does not become conditioned. Conditional life begins only after one is infected by the modes of material nature. If someone is in contact with the police department, that does not mean that he is a criminal. As long as one does not commit criminal acts, even though there is a police department, he is not punished. Similarly, the liberated soul is not affected, although he is in the material nature. Even the Supreme Personality of Godhead is supposed to be in the association with material nature when he descends, but he is not affected. One has to act in such a way that in spite of being in the material nature, he is not affected by contamination. Although the lotus flower is in association with water, it does not mix with water. That is how one has to live. There's a saying in English, you must learn the art of fishing without getting wet. We must learn that art. How to fish without getting ourselves wet. That is how one has to live, as described here by the personality of Godhead Kapila Deva. Animitta nimittena swadharmen amalatmana. One can be liberated from all adverse circumstances simply by seriously engaging in devotional service. See, once again, the stress is what? One can be liberated from all adverse circumstances simply by seriously engaging in devotional service. How this devotional service develops and becomes mature is explained here. In the beginning, one has to perform his prescribed duties with a clean mind. Clean consciousness means Krishna consciousness. One has to perform his prescribed duties in Krishna consciousness. There is no necessity of changing one's prescribed duties. One simply has to act in Krishna consciousness. In discharging Krishna conscious duties, one should determine whether by his professional or occupational duties, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is satisfied. In another place in the Bhagavatam it is said, Swanushtitasya dharmasya samsiddhir aritoshanam. Everyone has some prescribed duties to perform, but the perfection of such duties will be preached only if the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is satisfied by such actions. For example, Arjuna's prescribed duty was to fight, and the perfection of his fighting was tested by the satisfaction of Krishna. Krishna wanted him to fight, and when he fought for the satisfaction of the Lord, that was the perfection of his professional devotional duty. On the other hand, when contrary to the wish of Krishna, he was not willing to fight, that was imperfect. If one wants to perfect his life, he should discharge his prescribed duties for the satisfaction of Krishna. So as a preaching organization, our duty, we all have our preaching duties. Not that we sleep till whole day and not do our duties. No. We have a preaching mission. We should do our duties. If one wants to perfect his life, he should discharge his prescribed duties for the satisfaction of Krishna. One must act in Krishna consciousness, for such action will never produce any reaction. Animitta nimittena. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Yajñartat karmano anyatra. All activities should be performed simply for yajna, or the satisfaction of Vishnu. Anything done otherwise without the satisfaction of Vishnu or yajna produces bondage. So here it is also prescribed by Kapila Muni that one can transcend material entanglement by acting in Krishna consciousness, which means seriously engaging in devotional service. This serious devotional service can develop by hearing for long periods of time. Chanting and hearing is the beginning of the process of devotional service. One should associate with devotees and hear from them about the Lord's transcendental appearance, activities, disappearance, instructions, etc. There are two kinds of Shruti or scripture. One is spoken by the Lord and the other is spoken about the Lord and his devotees. Bhagavad Gita is the former and Srimad Bhagavatam the latter. One must hear the scriptures repeatedly from reliable sources in order to become fixed in serious devotional service. Through engagement in such devotional service, one becomes freed from the contamination of Maya. It is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam that hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead cleanses the heart of all contamination caused by the influence of the three modes of material nature. By continuous regular hearing, the effects of the contamination of lust and greed to enjoy or lord it over material nature diminish. And when lust and greed diminish, one then becomes situated in the mode of goodness. This is the stage of Brahman realization or spiritual realization. In this way, one becomes fixed in the transcendental platform. Remaining fixed on the transcendental platform is liberation from material entanglement. So you see, full of wisdom, full of knowledge from Srila Prabhupada. When we engage our intelligence properly, then our intelligence will not get corrupted. That is a summon substance. Krishna explains the connection. Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhya param manaha manasastu para buddhi yo buddhe puratastu sa. How the chain of controls the living entity. What is the chain of his actions in what are the different levels of controls? Indriyani is the last stage. Indriyani paran ahur indriyebhya param manaha. Higher than the senses are the mind. Higher than the mind is the intelligence. Higher than the intelligence is the soul. So touch there. Our spiritual activity, our chanting, our reading is touching the soul. And the rest of the thing automatically fall in line. We'll stop here if there's any question, comments. रायपुर वाले का कोई क्वेश्चन है क्या? ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवत